Alright everybody, Battle Morphs! The cool confidence of the tiger, the swift cunning of the wolf, the intelligent rage of the gorilla. Elephant! I'm elephant! Guys, I'm elephant! Elephant!
Because they're finally depicting what's written in the book, and done so well.
I've seen a few of those like come across like Twitter or whatever, but I really first of all I didn't know that it was that much, which is cool. But I don't go looking for that stuff because I'm always afraid of what I'm gonna find. You know, like I'm gonna inadvertently step into a room or some group of people who absolutely hate my adaptations, and I'm gonna be like, oh, okay, now my feelings are hurt, and I gotta go back and start drawing more of these. So I just don't.
Okay, sure. I don't have the ego to think that my published opinions on the Animorphs graphic novels will have any meaningful impact on future entries, and I know that the internet has made it virtually impossible to sort out negative criticism made in good faith from the entitled whinging of fanboy losers. Chris Grind doesn't have to make his books to my specifications. That'd be silly. But as we reach the 5th book in Animorphs Graphix, the whole project is feeling more and more assembly line, and less like an ongoing artistic work that builds and improves on itself. We're 5 books in, and I shouldn't still be going, the good stuff from the previous books is still good, and the bad stuff from the previous books is still bad. Stuff should be developing, and it's not. At least, not in a forward way. I mean, this was always a work by commission. Grind didn't come on board because he had a deep nostalgic love for the source material like most of us reading it do. But I was kind of hoping that Grind would at least have a point of view on the work, an interpretation to make it his, give me something to actually chew on. And maybe he did early on. I'm not going to take away his previous accomplishments. Some of the big emotional moments from the first 3 graphic novels, especially Tobias's mental break and attempted suicide in number 3, The Encounter, are among his best works. But we're now 2 books past that, and it really feels like we're running out of gas. I think we should just go straight to the book's supposed emotional peak and show you how Grind handles it. This is, naturally, an adaptation of Animorphs number 5, The Predator, Marco's first book as narrator, and the book in which we learn that his presumed dead mother is the current host of Visser One, the only reoccurring villain to outrank the series' central antagonist in Visser 3, and one of my favorite characters in the whole series. It's this book where Marco finds his reason to fight the Yeerks. He's been on the verge of quitting from the very beginning because his dad really went into a depression spiral after his wife's presumed death by drowning. If Marco died, his dad wouldn't survive it. And he very well nearly died in the previous book, getting his tail bitten off by a shark. And in this book, he seriously considers quitting. With the discovery that his mom is still alive, Marco is given the hope that his family can be restored, that things can go back to how they once were. And Marco's determination is locked in for the rest of the series. So how does the graphic novel play this out? The subject is first broached about a third of the way into the book. Marco has a nightmare about lobsters and wakes up crying out for Mom! His dad is already in the room, and the two discuss their situation. Marco's dad. Were you dreaming about her? Your mom? Marco. No, why? Marco's dad. Because the first thing you said when you woke up was Mom. Marco. Oh, I guess I was confused. Marco's dad. Do you, though? Dream about her, I mean? Marco. Sure I do. Sometimes. But they're not nightmares. It's an okay scene, taking place in the usual featureless void most of the book takes place in. Why does this lamp lose detail the closer we get to it? But Grind's disinterest in thought balloons or narration boxes means that all of Marco's interiority is missing. We have the words they're saying, but not what Marco wants to say instead. He picked up the little framed picture of my mom that I keep on my nightstand. Then he got that twisted look of sick grief I had seen on his face every day for the last 2 years. Part of me is mad when I see him that way. Part of me just wants to say, Dad, get it together. Let her go. She's dead. She doesn't want us spending the rest of our lives mourning. But I never do say that. This isn't helped by Grind's usual character designs, with Marco's father looking like every other plastic doll that occupies these books. He almost looks like Jake under different lighting. Like, what's communicating that this is a depressed middle-aged man and not another teenager? A few face lines that the younger characters also sometimes have? Can you believe that this is supposed to be a 13-year-old girl? I know stubble is a cliche detail for a sad dad, but it would go a long way communicating who this guy is and his current mental state. Okay, in fairness, here's a really good drawing of Marco's dad near the end of the book, when he and Marco go to Marco's mom's gravesite. That's much more like it. Of course, to maintain the we can't tell you who we are aspect of the original books, Marco's mom gets a first-name-only gravestone. Back to the story, Alex builds a Yeerk communicator and hopes to draw in a bug fighter so that he might steal it and get back to Andalite space. But instead, a bajillion Yeerks show up and surround the Animorphs. Visser 3 is there. Visser 3 is always there. And our still in Battlemorph heroes are escorted to the Blade Ship and flown into orbit, where the Pool Ship is waiting for them. I'm sorry, but this approach sequence makes me laugh. The Blade Ship flies into the empty hangar bay of the Pool Ship. It's completely empty. Next frame, it's still completely empty. Then, whoop! An army of Hork-Bajir are waiting for them, lined up like Imperial stormtroopers. They're just suddenly there. It's like when a texture pops in a video game. So the Animorphs get out of the Blade Ship, and we see Visser 3 approach with someone by his side. The person gets closer. We can see that it's a human woman. We finally get a good look at her, and dun dun dun, it's some lady we've never seen before. For real, this is the first time we've gotten a look at Marco's mom. There's no images of her in the previous 4 graphic novels. So if you're coming into Animorphs fresh and don't know what's about to happen, Visser One showing up holds no dramatic weight until Marco goes, oh no, it's my mom. And what kills me, what absolutely slays me, is that there was a moment in this book that could have set this up. During that scene earlier where Marco wakes up from the nightmare, his dad picks up a picture of Marco and his mom on the nightstand, giving it a real good look, having an emotional reaction to it. And this is the closest we get to see it. This pulled back, low-detailed version of the photo. This is nothing. One panel of a detailed close-up on Marco's mother would have been all it took to give this moment the emotional weight it's supposed to have. Even the much maligned Animorphs TV show got this much right.
It's almost been 2 years, and things are finally starting to feel okay. My dad's doing well, and I'm all my dad has now. You know, it's funny the things we remember. Before she went out in her boat, she used to tell me the first half of a riddle. She said it was so I'd know she'd come back because she had to finish a joke. I miss her, Jake.
I know. I want things back the way they were too. I want Tom back. But that's not gonna happen unless we keep fighting.
It doesn't help that this is about the most boring way this scene could have been framed. This is the book's big moment. the introduction of a major series villain, a turning point for one of the 5 protagonists. What do you expect from such a moment? A full-page panel of her standing, imposing over our heroes? At the very least, you'd expect her to have a large panel to herself, communicating that this character is important. But instead, we have her in this crowded scene, Visser One off-center to the right, with absolutely no weight behind her introduction. Okay, one more small thing. I swear I could go on about this forever. Why do Marco's parents have light brown hair while Marco has black hair? Yes, genetics can skip a generation, but it says in the original book that Marco got his dark hair from his mother. Does Grind think this is how hair grays with age? If Visser One came in with the same dark hair as Marco, maybe that would have clued in the reader as to the connection between the two characters before Marco just has to say it out loud. But no, they gave Visser One this hair color. Except for this one panel when she's staring down Visser 3. I don't know if this is a coloring mistake or what, but Visser One looks so much more striking with black hair than poop-colored hair, doesn't she? I know I'm rambling, but I don't think this stuff is insignificant. I think it betrays, if not an apathy, then at least a forced indifference to the book being adapted, brought on by strict deadlines and a lack of support from Scholastic. There were certainly more mandates coming in from Scholastic than there were in the previous 4 books. Earth guns are now banned in their graphic novel division, so they were removed from the opening mugging scene and the scene where the police controllers chase the Animorphs around the mall. It seems like a weird distinction to make in a book where a Hork-Bajir gets his face sliced off, but what do I know? We also no longer have Marco screaming about a bomb to clear a grocery store. The grocery store is just fairly unrealistically empty already. You can feel Scholastic rounding off the corners for this one, turning on the child locks. I'm sure Scholastic also decided on the cover, which has Axe demorphing in the mall, which is a memorable scene to be sure, but we've just given up on communicating who the point of view character is. My brain almost never registers the outlined morphing sequence up top. I do believe that a kid casually seeing this on the shelf would assume it's an Axe book. But it's also a Rachel book? For one moment in the middle of the story, we break from our given point of view character in Marco. The scene where the Animorphs morph ants to sneak into Chapman's basement is narrated via a conversation between Rachel and Tobias after the fact. This is the second biggest scene from the original book, where our heroes are blindsided by the intense ego death of becoming colony insects, a trauma that follows them through the rest of the series. Rachel. The ant's mind erupted inside my own. There was no fear. None. No hunger. There was no self. No me. There was only the colony. And this wasn't it. However, ants aren't the most emotive animals around, and coming up with a way to communicate the loss of personhood in being an ant in a visual medium would be a challenge. I don't believe it would be an insurmountable challenge. You could be pretty expressive with the idea, but perhaps there wasn't enough time to brainstorm. Narration is fine, but these books made the decision early on not to use classic narration boxes or thought balloons to communicate a character's internal thoughts. Be loyal to the original prose, but show as little of the original prose as possible. Okay, fine, we'll use this conversation trick to get around it. But who would Marco be talking to? The only one who doesn't morph ant in the book is Tobias. And maybe Grind thought Marco and Tobias had the least rapport out of any pairing in the group. So just this once, we break the rules. Rachel becomes the POV character so that we can have some quick and easy tell-don't show. Look, it works well enough, but I think it betrays the fact that Animorphs Graphix made the wrong decisions toward how it would adapt the source material from day one. And if the series goes on, they're going to be running into this POV issue more and more often. I don't want to downplay the difficulty in drawing up a 200-page graphic novel every year. That's hard work. I couldn't do it. But I think it's a business model that is producing diminishing returns with every iteration. Each of these make fewer artistic swings than the previous, More and more panels are without backgrounds. Art is starting to get copied and pasted. Details are getting stripped away. Why is there so much negative space on this mall sign? There's definitely effort put into other parts of the book. The animal art is still detailed and accurate. The morphing sequences are still excellently grotesque. The gooey alien gore is up a notch. There are flashes of excitement and eye-catching visuals. But frankly, I think it's for naught if the storytelling isn't up to snuff, and I just don't think it is anymore. Animorphs Graphix is locked in for at least one more book. We have number 6, The Capture, coming out in March, and I'll do a video on it after it comes out. But I think we're getting to a sort of Animorphs event horizon here. The 2011 Animorphs reprints only got as far as 7 paperback books and 1 ebook before Scholastic decided it wasn't profitable enough to continue. And that was just slightly revised text and new covers for a popular series that had only ended 10 years prior. A 200-page, full-color, hardcover graphic novel attempting to appeal to a new audience born many years after the source material? That's a whole other beast. I do not know how well these graphic novels are selling. I don't have the numbers. But they can't be doing that well, can they? Well enough to keep this going another 6 years? 6 years, my god. The original Animorphs series only ran for 5, just long enough to maintain an enraptured audience through middle school into high school, with a monthly schedule to maintain momentum. Any initial youth audience grabbed from the first Animorphs Graphix is now approaching their late high school years, if not already starting college, and the story is only just starting to rev up. Unlike the original series, if Animorphs Graphix is going to continue, it's going to have to find ways to be continuously renewing its audience. It just seems unattainable without dramatically changing the game plan here. Adding a second illustrator, cutting books from the original series, getting more than one of these out every year, and that will just drive up production costs. I'm happy to be wrong, but I don't think we're going to get past 6 graphic novels. I think Animorphs Graphix is going to end this March. We'll see, I guess. I'm sorry, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but my enthusiasm for the graphic novel project is the lowest it's ever been. It's not even that these books are bad, per se. I've read worse graphic novels. The base quality of writing is still good because they're based on good books. Grind knows what he's good at, and there are individual illustrations here that knock your socks off. But more than ever, the threads holding things together are showing. Grind is either not equipped or is too rushed to identify the emotional core of each of these books, while at the same time having a strict adherence to the source material that he isn't able to make his own. And now we're getting noticeable publisher meddling. I give Animorphs Graphix number 5, The Predator, a 3 out of 10.